Hi everybody. So I wanted to take a couple minutes to talk about UVs. I think UVs can be very complicated and confusing, so I wanted to just use some of these examples to show you some things that we can do and sort of how those can be used. So hopefully now you kind of have UVs as a concept in your head. I'm going to go to apply a new material to this. We're just going to use let's go ahead and use a blend because I want a little bit of highlight on the wood. I'm going to turn reflectivity off, and I'm just going to map an image into my color channel here. And so click on the little checkerboard box to map an image into it. And so what you will see is that I can choose a file. When I go look for that file, I already have a crate image in here. Okay, so these are just some wood pieces and so this radioactive material sticker or paint that is on top of it there. And so I'm just going to hit OK, and it's going to apply that image to it, and this is not going to put it on there in a very clean or nice fashion. So if we look at our UVs for this, it pops it up in the other window. Let me bring it over. You'll see that I guess I have to select the object. You'll see that it's not very clean UVs. In fact, it's almost from this perspective that I have here. And so this is why we're getting a weird texture on it, right? And so we can grab these things one at a time if we wanted to, or these things one at a time if we wanted to, and start moving them around and trying to untangle them. But instead what we're going to do is we're just going to blow it apart into a set of UVs, so we'll kind of be able to start piecing it back together. Okay, so I just go back to my object mode here, and under polygons I'm going to create UVs, and I'll just go ahead and use the automatic mapping. Okay. And when I do that, you'll see it just blows it into a whole bunch of different pieces. It's kind of hard to see it in here on this this blue lines on this texture, and so like right in here stuff gets lost. So there's a couple of tricks we can do to make this a little bit easier to see. If I click this button, it will kind of dull down the background image, which is fine, and I may not always want that, and if I click this image, it will fill all of the UVs with a sort of a translucent blue color. Okay, and so now we can start looking and seeing what we have here. So if I were to just make a guess based off of how my object is modeled, I would say these boxes with the line through the middle of them is this face here. Like how we have, go to 4 so you can see this. How we have 5. I mean, how we have this sort of set up as like this box with the cross through it. And the reason these faces are not connected to that, you'll see that they're showing up over here. The reason those faces are not connected to that is because they're at a different angle. They're at a 90-degree angle, so they're getting projected probably from the top. Okay. And then we can guess that these triangle pieces here are what is making up the rest of this. And then some more of these are these little box pieces in here. Okay? So, the reason this was complicated is because I need planks of wood on all of this, right? And if I hit 6 where we can see that, we have that. It's just not very clear about the direction of them, right? So I need this actually almost broken down into more pieces. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here and I'm going to start moving these things out and sort of separating them out into the pieces that I need. So within the UV editor, we're editing UVs. We're not, we can select vertices, but we can't really, we can move them, but we're really just moving the UV space, right? We can move them over here, but we're moving the actual 3D space. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to UVs. It's just easier to select. And go select shell, and that's just going to select the shells for all of those boxes that I just created. And you can kind of see that as an example as I move that around. You'll see what's moving on there. And so I just want to separate those out. I'm also going to separate out all the triangles just so I know where those are at. And this is just sort of just to clean this area up so I can figure out what is what. Right. And get those over here by themselves. I think I ended up hijacking one of those guys. So move those over. And I'll do that. Okay. Now, since we have this, I want to just sort of one at a time start putting the boards over here to line them up with the planks. And what I'm going to do is all of the, I'm probably going to split them right about here. I'm going to try to make like one piece be a top, a bottom, and then connected with another board right through here. So if that makes sense, it would be like all of these pieces would be one plank, and then these pieces would be, that would be part of another plank, and then this will be another plank. Okay, so I'll show you that by, we'll do this with the first one here. That was in face mode. It appears that it's right here. Right. And so you'll see that the first thing is that although this is going up and down, it's turned sideways here. So let's just go ahead and pull this guy out. Select shell. I'll pull it out. And I'm going to rotate it this way so that they're sort of facing up and down. You'll see that I'm actually getting a little bit of a better result. Okay. Now I'm going to use this as sort of a way to set my scale for my scene. So I'm going to turn this back on, and I'm just going to scale this up, but I'm going to grab everything. Okay. And I'm going to scale this up and move it. I'm going to scale it in all directions here so that we get the right sort of plank size for our board. So if I move this over now, yeah, we're getting pretty close to the size of a plank on this board. And because I'm scaling all of it, it's all sort of staying in the same scale, so I don't get one board that just feels too small. And I'm going to go just a little bit bigger with that. Okay. And you'll start seeing that that's lining up and looking pretty good on this board going up and down the side, which I actually said I was going to do the opposite of that, didn't I? I'm changing my mind. I like the up and down boards being supporting boards, so that's working well there. So now that that's working, on the two outside boards, like these two look pretty good. Problem is I get this going up and down streak here, so I'm going to have to start cutting stuff. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab these edges, and I just want to cut these planks out. Right, so I'm just creating some seams there where I want to cut this. And then if this is how we weld it together, it's actually these scissors up here that will separate it. So if I click this as separate, it doesn't look like anything happened, but now if I go and select this UV and say select shell, you'll see that that's a new piece that I can separate. Now, luckily this was something I did almost at a 90 degrees, so I can just rotate that once. You'll see now we're getting a nice board that's going sort of diagonally down this. Now I'll be able to do some very slight scaling if I need to here. And then again I can go grab these two, select shell, I can rotate them this way, and I can move these into position as well. Now I have this, and as you see, I'm just kind of staggering them, so I'm getting slightly different textures in each section. And we can do that, and something I'm going to try to steer clear of is getting this, this caution radioactive material on any of these planks, because I want that to show up on the planks that's on the inside of these little triangle areas. So I got that going on here at the bottom a little bit, so I'm just going to move this over. Now you'll see that I'm overlapping them a little bit. So if you go in here and look, I got this piece here is on top of the other piece. And I'll tell you right now that some modelers are going to cringe at that. I'm going to try to keep it all within this single box, right? Even though I can go outside of the box and it's still, the texture doesn't disappear, it just continues to tile. So I'm going to try to stay within this single box. but I'm going to be able to let them overlap. And the reason that some people would cringe at that is because this isn't true in all types of UV layout. So your UVs are used to calculate a lot of stuff, including sometimes how your shadows work, and how your how lighting affects parts of your model. So overlapping your UVs is a bad thing, especially in stuff like video games. It doesn't mean you can't do it. It means that there's an extra step that you have to go through to make the lighting work. So you don't need to worry about that right now. Just know that in this situation, I'm all right with overlapping them. But in a lot of situations, it's not a good idea. So don't think that this is something you can do all the time. But just in the way that we've kind of structured this, it's all right. And so if there's something that's reusable, we're fine with that. Okay, so let's go in here now and start looking for other faces that we can do this way. So we got face. Actually, I'm not going to do the entire thing. I'm just going to do this one side so you can kind of see. And then I will post a video of the final, or an image of the final box somewhere on YouTube or something. Something else I'm going to do though that I kind of made a mistake. I'm going to grab this and I'm going to kind of keep this off to the side, and I'll explain why here in just a bit. So I'll go ahead and use that one over here instead of where I had it. Now, as of now, it's looking kind of neat because these panels are going the other way. But I want to try something even neater with that. I'm going to try to figure out which face these are. So it's those two and those two. So that's good information to have. I'll just move those out. And something that I want, and I'll scale all of them just so we can, I want to make the texture size on this seem smaller. So I want it to feel like there's more boards in between here, almost like it's a different type of wood. And so this is a little bit of a cheat, but what we would do to do that is we would just make this larger. Right? If I made each of these planks, or each of these things a little bit bigger, then you start to see that the texture we're getting there is sort of like a smaller plank. Right? Ideally, maybe we would have a different color of wood in there instead of all of them being the same color, and this would kind of apply to those colors. So right now I can grab these faces. I'll just move these down. Let's do it as UVs again. Select shell, and I can move this down here, and I want to rotate it a couple of times so I can get this sticker on it. Okay. And so I kind of like how that's looking. But actually I think I want the top one to have the sticker. And I also think I kind of want them turned this way. So this is kind of what I'm trying to figure out. I want the boards going in this direction if I can. So to do that, I have to have it like this. Okay. So I'm going to go move this up here. And for this one, I think I can do that. If I just flip it. It's going to be more difficult than I thought there. So I'm trying to figure out if I want the boards going up and down or side to side. I think up and down works pretty well too, because I think that's a load-bearing option then. And so we got like a weight option for that. So we can do that. Then we get this sticker, and the sticker is upside down, but we don't have to really be worrying about that too much right now. And so we're just using this to kind of position this to look like it's the right area for what we want, right? Oh, and I guess I have to rotate this to make those seem vertical as well. And Get those boards lined up pretty good. Let's get it lined up to where we're on an edge there. There we go. Okay, and so now when we look at that, that's actually not bad. I'm all right with how that's turning out. And I know this is upside down, but that's something we could change in the texture. We could move this to a different point, or we could just assume that it's upside down because the people who made it, can't read or something. I don't know. And we can also try something like this, but you see we're getting a little bit of that texture seam. So I like how we had it. Let's go ahead and leave it like this. Okay. And so now we would just have to do this with all of the pieces. But there's one more thing that we're going to look at, which is these little side boards here that are connected in there. So there's a lot of different things we could do with that. The easiest of which would probably just be to grab them and move them down here and sort of position them all in a way to where they're not in an uncomfortable spot for that sticker, and we just get the wood flowing in the right direction. Problem with this is I don't think the UVs are actually laid out correctly. So let's go ahead and move these back over here, and so that's one of the reasons I did this, is because we can now grab this edge and this edge and this edge and this edge, and I think if I hit this button it will kind of snap it to it. And now we stretch that one edge a little bit while this one still stays kind of the same length. So probably what I would do there is select the keys I needed and go ahead and scale those back out to where they line up a little bit better. And so we'll get a little bit of a transition on each side there now. And we can actually do this with every one of the boards if we wanted to. I mean, we could, let's see if we can find one here that's lined up. What's that at? Oh. This needs to be one of the inside boards. Maybe on one of those sides. Okay, so that one lines up to that. There we go. Let's grab this, this, this. Right. And then if I weld that, that's not what I wanted at all. Okay, I mean, that one's not going to work that well. I mean, we can make it work that way, but just as a simple solution, I'm not sure it's worth making that big of a change. The one thing I would say I'll probably make the change of, though, is making this a little larger, making these pieces a little larger just to kind of match up with the size of this piece that we snapped in there. And so you see it's a little bit longer, so I'll just scale these up so they kind of match. So we're in that range there. Right. And now we can just start piecing these together. So it's that face, that face, that face, that face. So just select shell on that, and we can move those over. And so we just need to have these positioned in a place that looks pretty good for them. Grab all that. I'll just drop these like right in here or something like that. Alright, so that little bit of work has given us a pretty good result on this side of the box. So what I'm going to do now, I'll go ahead and stop the video, and I will finish up just doing that with the rest of the box, and I'll post the images of that on Google Plus as well. So let me know if you have any questions, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.